Hi, I'm Dr. Neil Bompani. Welcome to another video in the Arranging 101 series. Before you start this video, please make sure that you've seen my videos on understanding music theory, both video 2 and 2B, as well as a video about understanding orchestration. Now, these videos do not teach you theory or orchestration, they just give you the importance of understanding both those subjects. If I have time in the future, I will do some theory and orchestration videos. However, if you go to my Arranging 101 page at www.bompanimusicco.com, and there's a link, you'll find links to music theory and orchestration materials available online. I do not make any money from these vendors who offer the products, but I want to get you started. If I have time, again, I will do some basic music theory and orchestration videos, but for right now, I do want to focus on arranging. Okay, please remember to subscribe, like, and ring the bell. I appreciate that very much if you're getting anything out of my videos. If not, don't worry about it. Today's video will introduce you to the first steps of creating an arrangement. What I will explain can be used for any musical ensemble, from a duet to an orchestra. Even if you have a small band with people who don't read music very well, the same process will apply. We're going to start with the most important element of any arrangement. That is the melody. All music has a melodic component, even hip-hop. In hip-hop, the main rap may only be spoken, not sung, but the arrangement still needs to serve the rap, which is the most important element of the song. Okay, so here is rule number 1. The melody is always a focal point of the arrangement. Again, the melody is always the focal point of the arrangement. In speaking generally, whatever you do with the harmonic and or rhythmic components of your arrangement must not take focus away from the melody. If you've ever heard a band made up of inexperienced musicians, you may notice that one or more of them may be playing as if they're not listening to anybody else and they think their part's the most important in the world. An experienced drummer might decide to start showing off every other measure by putting in fills or showing you what he could do, with his left hand, playing all these extra notes. Where a bass player might avoid playing a steady bass line and start playing as if he was doing a bass solo. I've been in these situations. I know they happen. In the same way, an inexperienced arranger may write supporting parts that actually get in the way of the melody. They don't know they're doing this, but it could happen. Let's demonstrate this whole process by starting with a simple two-phrase melody. Okay, there's an original melody, and it's not the most exciting melody in the world, but it will serve our purpose. This melody would probably be the first line in a larger form, but we're not going to worry about that right now. And I'm assuming that this melody is more like a slow rock ballad kind of melody. But again, we could change the style, as you will see later. So, here's our melody, written out and performed with only a click track. Please watch and listen. All right, let's take a look at that melody. As you look at the melody, notice there are 2 8-measure phrases. Each phrase ends with a long note. This creates a 2-measure break between phrases, as well as a 2-measure break at the end of the phrase. Second phrase. After the 16th measure, the music would continue on, either with a repeat of the first 16 measures or a completely different section. We're not going to worry about this now. You might also notice there's a short break between measures 4 and 5 in the melody. We'll address this later. It's most important, though, to realize the lack of movement in measures 7 and 8, 15 and 16. Our arrangement must address this. We're going to start simple. Let's assume this arrangement is a duet for soprano, sax, and guitar. Most decent guitarists can take the chord symbols and with the instructions written down to arpeggiate the chords, they can come up with an accompaniment. Now, if you want to write out the guitar part, make sure you understand how to write voicings for guitar. They're not the same. You can't write them as if you're writing for piano, like root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth. It doesn't work with guitar. Okay? All right, notice that the melodic line seems to be in a different key this time. It really is not. The melody is being performed on a soprano sax, which is a transposing instrument. The chords that are written above the melody are for the sax, in case he or she wants to improvise. However, when we begin to write our arrangement, we're going to find the actual key of the work is not C, but actually B flat. Now, if you don't understand this, you do not understand orchestration. So please go back to my video on that and find some orchestration links. Let's hear this simple arrangement of guitar playing arpeggios, arpeggiated guitar, I should say, and soprano sax. Let's listen. Notice that the guitar accompaniment gave the music motion. Had the guitarist simply strummed each chord like ring, we might not have felt the beat. You could do this even as a piano and sax, let's say, or piano and voice. If you don't have some kind of rhythmic movement, we don't feel a beat. It loses us. It confounds the listener. All right? Now I'm going to approach this as if I were writing an arrangement for soprano, saxophone, and guitar, piano, bass, and drums. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up my sketch score. I'm going to do this in Finale. A lot of times I do this on paper, and I do suggest you write on paper in the beginning. You can, of course, use any notational program or even write things out by hand. Again, I'm going to suggest you write things out by hand at first. Let's take a look at the sketch score with only the melody and chords. In this score, you'll notice that I have not added any parts yet. Here you see the first page, followed by the second page. This is how you begin any arrangement. This arrangement may be complete. This might be my entire arrangement. Or I might use it to expand it, to add strings, horns, backup vocals, whatever, synthesizers. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is add simple piano, bass, and drums to the melody. However, I will not do anything special with them this first time. For the drums, I'm going to write out a simple beat and follow it with measure repeats. And keep with this for now. Piano part is simply going to be block chords with symbols above the chords. The bass part will be a simple pattern focusing on the root or the root and the fifth of each chord. The guitar part for now will only have chords with slash notation in them. Please note, I removed the chords from the sax part and put them in the other parts. Look closely at the key signature again. We're in the key of B flat. The soprano sax is a transposing instrument, as I said before. Now, for professional musicians, this score might be enough for them to create a good arrangement. However, you can't always assume the people for which you will write will be professionals. My teacher, Frank Hunter, told me, among many other things, that he always wrote out the bass parts, even if he was writing for the greatest bass player in the world. Now, when I've written arrangements for I've done a lot of big band arranging. When I've done big band arrangement and I've been in the band that's performing my arrangements, if I knew the bass player was a good bass player, I would hand him my part and say, look, you don't have, this is a guide. You can do your own thing, because I would trust that person. Now, if I didn't trust the person, I wouldn't say that. So let's listen to this very simple version as I've written it out. Let's listen to it. Here we go. So what do you think? It's pretty uninteresting, huh? So now we need to make some changes to create some interest. I'm going to start with the drums and simply add a 2-beat fill at the end of measure 8 and measure 16. Here's the drum part. Notice what I've done here. I've put a couple slashes at the end of measure 8 and 16 and just wrote the word fill. Drummer will know that on beat 3 and 4 you want to add a little fill here. You want to be precise with drummers, especially in this situation. Also, learn how to write for drums. A lot of people just, I've seen a lot of arrangements where the drum parts are horrible. If you don't know how to write for drums, find a drummer and let him help you out with it. All right. For the piano part, I want to add some movement to the part without getting in the way of the melody. So you're going to have the piano player play quarter note chords. I'm going to add a few color notes here and there. I'm also going to make one chord change. At the end of measure 4, we have an F dominant 7 chord, which usually resolves to a B flat major chord. But here we have a deceptive cadence to G minor. If you remember, I said there was a slight break here between measures 4 and 5. Instead of coming up with some fancy piano part or some movement somewhere else, I simply substituted the dominant F7 chord with a D7, that's a 5 of G minor, dominant 7th chord to G minor with the F sharp in the bass. This is really all I need to fill in that break. Very simple, very clean, and yet powerful, as you'll hear. So I change the piano part, and I notate in the guitar. I change the guitar chords a little bit because if you notice in the piano part, I'm adding some seconds in there, and then they'll resolve down, a step. So I have to put in the guitar part as well. I want the guitars to be aware of what's happening. All right. I'm also going to add some dynamics here and there. So let's keep that in mind. Listen to the arrangement this far without the melody. And we're going to hear that chord change at the end of the 4th measure. Pay particular attention to that. Let's hear it. Now let's add the sax and hear it all together. All right, so we have a very simple arrangement that works. From here we have a lot of options. If at the end of measure 16 the entire section repeats, on the repeat I might add something extra to make it stand out for the first time. From the first time. A simple thing like having the drummer change from playing on the hi-hat to a ride cymbal is a little change. We could also put more interest in the piano, or even use the guitar to add some interest. A little bit of a counter melody, or the bass with a little bit more rhythm in the bass. If you want to know how to add interest, I suggest you do some listening. You get a lot of ideas. Go listen to Bach's Theme and Variations, or Mozart's Theme and Variations on Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Hear how they make things interesting by adding counter melodies, sometimes changing chords, keys, and all that. Gives you ideas. Remember, listening is part of your practice. Now, I'm going to try a few other things. I'm going to play some arrangements for you that are bad arrangements, because the performers are not serving the melody. They're serving themselves. Now listen to these and you get an idea of how a melody can really get screwed over by, performers that don't stick to what they're supposed to play. That's why you want to make sure that you write out as much as you can for the performers so they don't have the liberty to do whatever they want. Okay? Let's listen to just a couple bad ones. Okay, so this ends our first video on setting up an arrangement. Very simple. 2-phrase melody, keeping it simple. From here, we'll go on to repeating, the lines or maybe changing styles and so on and so forth as we move on. But for this lesson, keep that in mind. The melody has to be the focal point. Please keep in mind as you arrange, do not try to add too much to your arrangement, at least not at first. This way you leave yourself room for more embellishment when the melody returns. For example, in this case, when we go to the next 16 measures, we repeat the melody, we might want to add something. If we try to put too much the first time, we get to the second time, all of a sudden, we find ourselves with a mess. It's much like the old Italian proverb. You can't take 10 pounds of this and put it in this 5-pound bag, because what overflows is what you don't want. Keep that in mind when writing. Please remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell if you like these videos. Also, in the comments area below, include any videos you'd like to see me work on in the future. I have a lot planned and I have a lot further to go, but I am interested in knowing what you want. Also go to my page at www.bompanimusicco.com. Go to the Arranging 101 page and sign up for updates in case I have some new programs or come across some new helps for you. I'll be glad to pass them on. Thank you very much.